Welcome to Caregiver Cast. My name is Mary Elaine Petrucci. I'm your host. My guest today is Barb Ashcroft, who will be talking to us about grief. And that's a really hard topic for a lot of us. So before I introduce Barb to you, I'm just going to give you some background information about her. Barb Ashcroft is an author, mentor, and encourager to many. With 40 years of success as an entrepreneur and natural health advocate, she has learned and taught self-care strategies or how to move from the grinding, hustling mode for success to be in the flow and finding joy in the job and joy in the transitions of life. Barb Ashcroft is best known as an encourager, a hub to put the right tools and the right people together. Her passion project is to support families with a healthy heritage. Presently, she's constructing a compassion and action resource guide to help support family and friends dealing with loss and to create a community who can share their care with confidence. So many are dealing with grief illiteracy and are fearful of saying or doing the wrong thing. So they do nothing and perpetuate the lack of knowing what to say or to do. Welcome, Barb, to Caregiver Cast.
Thank you so much, Mary Elaine. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, what is an excellent way to greet somebody who is going through loss? Maybe you can talk a little bit about grief and then how to greet someone who's going through a loss.
Well, let's give an example of, clarity through contrast, saying what not to say first.
Okay.
And a big thing that we do, because we all, love and care for these folks. And so often we'll be saying, how are you doing? And we don't realize that that can be a burden for a grieving person, because they want you to be happy. They don't want to bring you down. And then they have to come up with, okay, well, I'm good now, but in 10 minutes, I might be crying my eyes out. So how am I going to do this? So if we can just do a flip on that, and if you're meeting the individual in person, a wonderful thing to say is just affirming, it's so good to see your face. And if you're on the phone, just, oh, wow, I'm so glad to hear your voice. Just affirming them as an individual where they don't have to make a decision, one more assessment of how they are to reply. So that's what I found very, I don't know, it affirms them at the same time that we care, and I think that's powerful.
Most definitely. So you have one comment to definitely avoid when speaking with a grieving person. You want to be affirming, but sometimes we tend to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. So explain how this comment, I guess, negates the person that's going through the loss.
You mean, how are you doing, Kamala? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily negates the loss. And of course, we all know that every grieving experience is different. And there's also many ways we grieve. We can grieve the loss of a loved one. We can grieve the loss in COVID days of a business, of an income stream, of a marriage, with all the protocols of the pros and the cons. We can have a loss, a rift in a family. There's lots of losses, right? So they're all out there. But I think the one thing that really has come true to me, and I've been so blessed since I've been doing this project. I've had such generous people coming and saying, hey, you need to talk to so and so. You need to, here's somebody that I think will really be a support, be a help. And it's just been so affirming that there's so many people that really want to help, but it is grief illiteracy is we don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. And in my past history, I would be frozen. And so oftentimes I would do nothing and feel terrible. And then the grieving person is also, feeling terrible because where's Barb, in all of this. So just to really just stretch our comfort level, like it's just so critical that we do reach out. And so being present is just, I would think, the biggest thing we can be, because we can support them just by being a good listener. Another thing we often do, and this, again, this is personal stuff, but also what other people are sharing with me, is that we would say, call me if there's anything I can do. Well, when you're grieving, the brain, the blood has left the brain. You are on survival mode. You're not going to, if you do remember who that person even was that said that, you're not having the capacity to really say, hey, Mary Elaine, can you pick me up a carton of milk? You're just not in that mode. So another positive thing we can do is our most valuable asset is our time. And just being able to share with them, hey, I've got some time Thursday afternoon. Is there anything that I can pick up for you? Is there anything, do you need someone to drive you around, to take you to different things that you need to complete? Just to actually offer. They may say no, they may, but at least they know you're making an offering, right? So they know you're there on the periphery for support. And oftentimes it's just saying, hey, well, no, I don't really want to go out, but if you'd like to come over, I'd really like to just have somebody in the house with me, So there's so many little subtleties that we can do. And what I'm doing right now is I have one of those, I believe they're called perpetual calendars, where it's every year, right? There's no year on it. It's just whatever, 1 to 30 for April. And what I'm doing is with friends that are going through loss, I'm making sure that I write down the date of when their spouse, for instance, passed away, or when their anniversary date is. And so for me, that's a reminder. I think what really sticks with individuals to show our support is just, 2 weeks out, send a card. I'm thinking of you. That because that's going to be a tough day for them, and just to know that somebody 8 months later remembered. I think, wow, that is just such a powerful way. I mean, if you can phone them as well, great, or stop by, that's great too. But just the little wonderful things we can do as people to just reach out and care. And if anything's gone missing in 2 years of COVID, it's our ability to know how to reach out and and do that because we've all been cocooned in so many different ways, right? So,
Right.
mhm.
Definitely. I know I've been really remiss. A friend lost her mother. I believe it was like the end of April last year. We did speak. She wanted to speak, like about a week or so later. And after the funeral, I did go to the funeral. And then she called me in January and just wanted to talk, which was great. I feel badly because I haven't made more time for her. One of her sisters did send me a letter. Our families did a lot of things together. Her mother and my mother went walking all the time.
Wow.
Both of our fathers were electricians, so they talked about that. So we were really close until my friend married and moved out of state. And it wasn't until probably the late 90s when she was coming out to Boston to Mass Eye and Ear because she was participating in an eye study for night blindness. So there's a lot of ties. So what can I do now that it's almost a year and I haven't really reached out very much?
Well, how about starting with, a card?
Okay.
You say, just thinking about and start there. And so that she has something in, concrete in front of her that you have remembered. And like you said, it was in April sometime. So just saying, thinking about you and would love to connect and just check in. I think that's a wonderful thing to do.
Okay. So how are you, the worst thing to ask a grieving person?
Well, I think it just puts a burden on the grieving person to answer. They don't know if you really want to know that they are just, in a tsunami of feelings that are flushing them down the river, and so just being able to share fun memory to bring just some wonder. If you knew her, some of those memories that you're already talking about was, when our dads used to talk all the electrical stuff, and we'd be going, oh, Dad, oh, really, or whatever, that sort of thing, just to be able to put in a pause that there is still life, there's still good memories, there's still all of that. And it certainly, we don't get out of this ourselves. None of us get out of this alive. So this is part of living, is learning how to do this. And what my goal is with creating the, compassion and action guide, where it's being able to focus on sharing our care with confidence. I think that confidence thing is the toughest. That yes, once we learn a few of and putting it in action, our courage goes up, and then it's easier the next time and the next time. And what I've been blessed with is, as I've been implementing more of this, because I believe when we first talked, I had shared how in 6 weeks 4 of my friends had become widows, and more since then. But that is what catapulted me because of my lack. I just thought, I've got to know there's got to be ways to serve, got to be ways to support these folks. And I am totally out of my element here. And that's why I've been so blessed with so many, people sending me podcasts and books and everything, that there's wonderful resources out there, but who has the mental acuity to be able to do that? And that's why, as a entrepreneur and being a hub, I think this is my element to help pull this together to be easily digested pieces that people can do. But I've got off on a bit of a bunny trail there. But what I wanted to say was, once we start doing some of these things, it's amazing how it creates a ripple. And we have a long-term friend that's having some serious health issues. And when I was first notified of this, it was just, I was shocked myself how quick I picked up the phone to talk to the wife. And I'm doing that in front of my husband. And he too was hesitant to tell some of the other good friends about the situation. But the ripple effect, Mary Elaine, was amazing, because as I did that and I demonstrated that in front of him, when I hung up the call, he said, "Oh, can I have the phone? I want to phone so and so." And he did. And I think that's how we as a community can just help support those around us by, doing the little steps one at a time and being able to be present, just to be there. And it's obviously an ongoing, growing process. And everybody does grieve differently. So they've all got their own walk to walk. But if we can be there on the periphery to know that, so they know we're there, I think that's marvelous. I think it's just such a divine experience to be able to do that.
Yes, it's so hard. Let me give you an example. This may be going off a little, but let's say a family is grieving, and people that the family feels shouldn't be there are there. How do you deal with that?
Wow. Wow, that's a toughie. Yeah. So I guess for me, it would be what means the most to the grieving person. Let's say it's a wife and her husband has passed, because I have to have in my mind, I think in pictures.
That's fine.
So here we have the wife is now a widow, and there's people there. I think for me anyways, I'd be thinking, well, is this supporting her? Whoever it is, whoever they are, is it, is she feeling supported? Because I might think the person should be, kicked off a cliff. But that's not about me, right? It's about the widow. How is she experiencing? And obviously, if someone is making comments that are making her feel worse, then maybe that calls for somebody to step in and just pull them aside and be able to do that. But there's certainly lots of angst that can be with all of, the around grief, around family. And I had a wonderful interview for my guide that I'm preparing this month, that will be finished by the end of April to be out there. But I'm interviewing people that are working across a table with people who are grieving. And yesterday I was interviewing a top financial person who I respect. And he shared something that was so wonderful for me. He says, what I tell my people to do, For instance, if someone has an inheritance, a big insurance thing that's going to come your way, and then all the people come out of the woodwork and, hey, I need money for a car loan, I need money for this, I need money for that. What he does, and I think this is so spectacular, is he tells let's say the wife, saying, this is what I'd like you to do. Anybody that comes from the family, if they want an advance on any money for whatever reason, just tell them you have to speak to my financial advisor because the money's tied up. But it's not really tied up. But what he's doing is he's being the person with the big no stamp. She doesn't have to say no in her grief. She can buy. Isn't that powerful?
Yes, it is.
Wow. I mean, I just think you can take that on, and maybe it makes sense for that individual, but she's not having to do it. She's not having the pressure of keeping all the harmony, all the logistics of the family with, with all of that. I thought that was just such brilliant advice, so that's just one example. I'm really excited to have these video clips that will be in the guide, because we're going into the questions: what's keeping these people awake at night? What is it that they're worried about? So finances, will I have enough money to live on? Or what do I need to do to perpetuate that, to stretch it out, whatever. The other thing is all the legal stuff, all of that mumbo jumbo that's just like overwhelming, right? So I had a wonderful interview with a notary that for 39 years she has worked hand in hand and as a surrogate family member for people that don't have family close by. Maybe their family's in England, but they're there and nobody from the family was able, and she would step in and check on them and send reports and do all of that. So that's key. And then counselors, the whole aspect of, oh goodness, I was a couple. Now what am I? I'm a widow, and then the whole pastoral, spiritual element of that as well. So those are all interviews that I've done that will be, along with some really spectacular blog posts and podcasts that will be in the guide, so that people can have a sampling, not me just spouting what I've been learning, but these specialists that deal with these individuals all the time. In fact, this is something that I've already had available for people. It's resource sheets. It's not the actual guide yet, but this is, sharing your care with confidence. And one of them is from the Notary Association here, a blog post that they did, and it's called Good Grief, Be Kind to Others. And it's just marvelous as far as, the different aspects of all the things, how you can say, what you can do, managing your own expectations, but, not taking it personal with how a person reacts. I know when my mom passed, I'm sure I was pretty awful to some people because that was the first major person that I'd lost in my life. And my mom was a senior, of course, and I would be, Mary, I would be so irked with people saying, well, how old was she? And my ugly response, and sorry folks out there if you were one that got this from me, but it was like, it doesn't matter. Gone is gone. She's gone. I don't have her anymore. It doesn't matter how old she was, but there's going to be, outbursts that just hit somebody the wrong way and not to take that personal. It's just like, for me, I always think of tears as a pressure reducing valve. So I never apologize when I'm blubbering. And let me tell you, I've had some pretty ugly cries in the past. But it's just, being able to manage those expectations. We're not trying to hurry the person on to happy. What we're just doing is walking alongside them and letting them know we're there.
I totally would agree with you. So what is the very best tool that we already have within us that we can share with somebody who's going through grief and loss?
I think the biggest thing that keeps on coming up from every single person I've talked to so far is just be a good listener. Just, zip them out and just let them have a place to talk. Just to be able to share without expectation, without performance, without just to be able to, for them to be real. So I think that's the biggest thing that keeps on coming up all the time. And there's so many little things. Before Christmas on my LinkedIn page, I did the 12 days of Christmas sharing for grieving folks. And there was a tip a day on there, 12 special days. Today you can do this. And one was, again, time is the other aspect, being available. Would you like help sending out thank you cards? Would you like, do you send out holiday cards? Can I come and help you? Just doing things, together. Going for, a lot of people don't feel they have the mental dexterity to even drive. So being able to have, be a chauffeur to take them around to where if they've got to go to the funeral home or they've got to, whatever they've got to do. There could be a ton of stuff, but just not having to worry about traffic and all of that. So there's so many things you can do to help. It's just a matter of, being able to put them at the top of the list and keep them on that calendar so that 6 months, a year later, we're doing something and they're still noticing that we're still there.
Good point. So this is a little bit off what you had just talked about with time. Do you call and offer time, or do you just kind of show up at somebody's door and say, just thinking about you, and just hug the person and offer to take them somewhere? Or do you make a phone call first? What is the etiquette?
I don't know if there's a special etiquette because we're all different, right? But for me, I always like to phone first. Just checking in. I'm going to be, I got some time today. Would you like a visit? Or can I take you anywhere? Or, how, got your teapot on, can we just sit down and have a nice cup of tea? Just to be able, so that you're giving them the opportunity to say, today's not a good day. And so they, instead of just sort of, for me anyway, I'm not crazy about people showing up here unannounced, but other people
I may be coming. You never know.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'll give you the virtual hug here.
Okay. So giving of your time, just asking what you can do for the person. How do you help them either in the short term or the long term as they're going through this process? Because from my own experience, grief, loss, you go through that at different speeds. So
Right.
how do we know the person's not grieving? Is there ever a point where we don't see them, I guess, isolate or?
I think if we stay present, we'll be more attuned to the different stages of grief that we're going through. And I just recently come across a few grief coaches as well. So I'm putting their information on going into the resource guide so that, people can, refer to the professionals with that. Because of course, this is sort of lay counseling where we as family and friends can support. But there's different kinds of counselors out there that do all kinds of different things. So I think if we can just be around enough to be able to assess, because some people do get stuck in grief, and
Right.
they might need more professional or targeted help to help them get past a certain phase of that they're in. Because definitely Kubler-Ross talked about the different stages of grief, and so there's that to consider as well. I think just where I'm at, if I can not assume that everybody else is going to be jumping in, if I can just be responsible for me and how I respond, then that's going to take away a whole ton of guilt
Mhm.
from me, because I know in the past there were times where I didn't do anything. I did grieve and thought, I don't know if I can handle this grief. I don't know how I'm gonna do with this. And so, the guilt of not reaching out affects us too.
Mhm.
So in whatever way we can.
So you mentioned that sometimes people get stuck in a phase of grief. How can we make a suggestion that they see someone to help them get through the process without offending them or making them feel defensive?
Well, what I've been doing is, as I've been finding the resources,
Mm-hmm.
I've been forwarding them on, saying, here's some stuff that might really resonate with you.
Okay.
So check this out. Friends are telling me, this particular person is really helpful, and so that's maybe someone that you might want to reach out to too. But being able to have something, tangible that
Right.
you can send out, and of course that's another whole reason of creating this is
Mm-hmm.
I really wish to grow a community of folks that want to negate this whole grief illiteracy so that we can all do better, be better, and support better. And so by being able to bring monthly people resources, I think that, and of course for me, I'm not getting any younger. I'm going to be 74 next month.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is, and I live in a retirement community. So there's, we see a child and we're going, oh, okay. It's just, again, becoming more and more of our culture based on our ages.
Mhm.
So the better we can be able to adapt and help and support, I'm all for it.
Mhm. Definitely. What would be 3 takeaways people who are going through grief or people who see other people going through grief can be helpful to them, so that they could be more empathetic or compassionate when they're reaching out?
Well, I think I'm just going to share 3 right from this wonderful blog post from this notary on good grief. Just be kind to others is what it's titled. So the first thing is, if you don't know what to say, just say, I'm at a loss for words. I really don't know how to express myself or what to say, but I am so sorry for the death of your husband. Just to be able, I had, Mary Elaine, I had an interview with a lady the other day, and she had lost her husband last year. And she said, what is so painful is she'd be walking down the street in her town, and people she knew, because they didn't know what to say, they walked over to the other side of the street so there wasn't. I mean, it just is a heartache to real. I mean, yes, we don't know what to say and what to do, but let's get past that so these aren't getting pummeled with more and more hurt, right? So,
Right.
So that's the first one. The other one is just reach out. Don't let your own fears of not knowing what to say or intruding or seeing someone in heartbreak hold you back. Whatever you do, your sincerity and caring is what matters, and it will shine through. So, and then the third one we already talked about a bit, but it's just listen. Listening is the most important part of the communicating process. Don't be afraid to listen to someone in tears or anger. You may find you share some laughter together along the path throughout the conversation. Confirm what you have heard, such as, you must have been so shocked. So again, just so there's 3 nuggets that just help put it into perspective, that they're just little things, aren't they? But just, I think the biggest thing is the fear that's holding us back.
Oh,
So
definitely.
Break through those, dividing walls will, and with that sincerity, I think we can help but support and serve these ones. And I did want to mention one other aspect, because I know your field is working with a lot of caregivers. And of course, the caregivers, many times, they're dealing with anticipatory grief. They, having my mother-in-law with Alzheimer's and my dad with dementia, you lose them before you lose them. But you're still, you are grieving. When they can't remember the special things that bonded you together, that you did together and were a highlight of your life, that's so hard to bear. And so I think, as well as being able to support the ones who have lost a family member, also for us to be able to support the caregivers and being able to try and rally around them to offer them some cushion of sanity and just care is also so crucial in these days.
Most definitely. Thank you for sharing that on anticipatory grief, because I sure on some level I was going through that grief because my mother had Alzheimer's. So to see her change and not be able to really communicate verbally was a challenge. But I mean, you could still tell by her facial and body expressions. You could tell pretty well what she was thinking. And so I do appreciate that piece. And I'm so glad that we as a family, we lived in a neighborhood that was 8 blocks from the old University of Colorado Medical Center. So our neighborhood would change every 2 years with people coming in to the CU campus so that they could do fellowships.
Oh,
And we met this wonderful family from Australia. And they came to the United States with a child. They had a child here and then went back and had 7 more. So we had an opportunity as a family to back in a trip that we went to, like Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia for like 31 days or something crazy, and to see our friends. And that was just so amazing because Mom just lived her life. And, you know, people would ask me, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, she has visual problems, which was true. But I didn't want people, if people wanted to know, then they should ask Mom. Or if Mom wanted to share it. We went 6 months after she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And I think it would have been much more helpful if there was a nurse in this tour group that could have been a little bit more supportive. I mean, you know, Dad and I are going through our own grief at this point and seeing changes in Mom. And we didn't really let our friends know that Mom had Alzheimer's. But it was so nice just to spend time with them. It was just wonderful. And that was really the whole reason for the trip. So I apologize. I got off a little bit on a tangent.
No, that was a wonderful memory that you had, that you were reconnecting, and yes, it is hard to know how much to share with other individuals, whether they're going to be able to grasp how they can rally around you.
Well, that's a very good point. I really appreciate you talking about this subject because, you know, caregivers just find it really hard to get the support when the person they're caring for is alive. So this is a great way to have people out in the audience understand, to help each other as caregivers, and just to enlighten more people who are in the audience to be more sensitive about how they approach people who are going through grief. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Mary Elaine. I really appreciate your generosity to ask me to come on with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. People learned a lot about grief and how to treat someone. So that's the whole purpose.